Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our session on government and budgetary aspects of fire and EMS. A little different presentation today for our basic fire officer course. We're presenting this remotely. You're in the classroom, I'm not. It'll be in two parts. I'm presenting it via video because of a personal health situation in my family. I do appreciate NIPSTA accommodating this approach. Hope it works. I also extend thanks to IPPFA and Sean, our tech guru, for assisting me in presenting this material and for making it resident at IPPFA TV, our YouTube channel. If somebody is not in this class and happens upon this material, hopefully you'll get some benefit to it. So welcome aboard. My name is Dan Ryan. I am a project coordinator, part-time project coordinator at IPPFA. Retired out of two careers. The first as a municipal finance director in Skokie, and then secondly as a private sector union health and pension trust benefit administrator. All that time I've stayed on the Skokie Police Pension Board, a member of the Government Finance Officers Association, and written some books, written some articles, taught some courses at Lewis and SIU, NIPSTA, of course. So got a pretty good handle on local government and local government finance. Hopefully I'll be able to communicate that to you. So we're going to be remote for me, access via IPPFA TV. We'll do two separate modules. Unfortunately, I can't have any interaction with the class, but today, tomorrow, anytime, there's my email address. You'll see it a couple of times. dan.ryan@ippfa.org. So I wish I was there because looking at the roster, it would be a good group. We have Morton Grove Fire. They're our neighbors to the west. A good department. Two districts, Prospect Heights and North Main. Both of you guys with a strong historical presence in running and teaching at NIPSTA. Elmwood Park Fire, I used to live there, 1978 to 1985, 72nd Court in Armitage. Everyone in Elmwood Park lives at 72nd something or 78 something. Bloomington Fire, welcome north of Interstate 80. Glad you guys made the trip over here. Rosemont and Glencoe are public safety departments. That's a unique twist for us. And we have a representative from Chicago. I work closely with Chicago Fire Pension, Danny Fortuna, Kelly Weller, Tony Martin over at Local 2 on presenting their twice a year retirement seminars, which they have in Sox Park. If you didn't know it, there's an actual auditorium and a restaurant in Sox Park for meetings. Great place to have a meeting. So welcome, everybody. Like I said, I wish I could be with you, but it's not to be. So what's this all about? Why does NIPSTA care about government and budgetary structure for fire officers? Well, fire, police, other public safety services are provided by units of local government. Even private departments, and I've had some private departments in the class before, you're contracted by a local authority, which sets standards and it lets the contract and pays the money. So it's a government function. The industry you've chosen really is local government. And it pays for all employees, especially officers, to know something about it. So employees, officers, command staff, you operate in this environment. The further up you go, the more you need to know. But even that, at every level, fire department personnel, you're a citizen, you're a taxpayer, you're an employee. Someday you'll be a retiree. Some of you are public officials if you're on a pension board or a foreign fire insurance board. So it pays to take 2 hours out of our lives. Learn something about government and their budgets. So today we're going to look quickly at the relationship of the levels of government, a quick peek at the state constitutions, which set out some pretty important standards for local government. We'll examine local government itself, counties, cities, special districts. We'll spend a little bit of time on transparency, the Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act. We'll take a little break then between modules. When we come back, we'll hit the budget. We're also going to spend some time on public employee retirement systems because of their budgetary impact, because of the interest that you people will have yourselves, potentially as pension board members, but also as participants in these plans. And we'll wrap up with a module on purchasing and contracting. And that's a sort of a look at some more advanced material we do on a project basis if and when you move up to the advanced fire officer course. So as far as government structure in America, this is a little bit like high school civics. Just as a reminder, before we get into the division of powers, you remember from 8th grade, 10th grade, the separation of powers at the national level, the way the framers of the country set things up. Power is separated and shared and balanced between different branches of government, the executive, the legislative, the judicial. They all have powers unique to themselves. They all have intertwining relationships. The legislature can pass laws. The president can veto them. They can be passed over his veto. They can be reviewed by the judiciary. The judiciary is appointed by the executive and confirmed by the legislature. So it's a good revolving mix of powers and responsibilities, basis of our democracy. But there's also a division of powers between the levels of government. Constitution lays out what duties of the federal government are and the duties of the states and the powers of each. Needless to say, that's not a simple matter. We've probably got 250 years of Supreme Court decisions still trying to get that straight. But that's the way we work, and that is referred to as federalism. The Constitution creating two levels of government, each with independent powers. Who's missing from that? Local government. All right. Local government is created and governed by the states. We're not mentioned in the Constitution. We have no individual sovereignty. Sometimes people think there are 3 levels set out, but in fact, the local government structure is created by the states, and it varies from state to state. It's got a lot of things in common. It's got some things that are pretty different. The state constitutions are important. They, at the top end of that slide, the non-red italicized bold piece, pretty much lays out a structure that the state constitutions have. They'll have their own Bill of Rights potentially, separate powers just like the national government, set up the structure and election mechanism for the legislatures. My opinion, only Nebraska got it right. Nebraska has one house. They don't have a House of Representatives and a Senate, a single house legislature, very efficient, works quite well. The executive offices and departments, who gets elected, who gets appointed. The judiciary, how it's appointed, funded, and regulated, and of course the process for amendment. Now, when we get down to the bottom of the slide, I've got some red, bold, italicized elements. By the way, that's about the limit of my PowerPoint graphics capability. The creation and form and power of local governments is set out in the state constitutions. And then for Illinois firefighters, very importantly, our 1970 Constitution, there was a constitutional convention in Illinois in 1970, set out a whole new document. One of the things that came out of that was a public employee pension protection clause. Public employee protections that you have earned or will continue to earn by virtue of your employment on any given day cannot be reduced, impaired at all by actions of the state legislature. And that is pretty well tested in court. So it's a good clause. It's a good clause that protects your pensions. You often hear a lot about it in legal seminars and whatnot. It's well thought out. One of the strongest in the country. Okay, we talked about local governments. Who are they in the country? Well, here's some numbers. There are quite a few of them. A little over 3,000 counties. Municipalities, over 19,000. Towns and townships, 16,500. That varies greatly throughout the country as to what that means. There are towns in New York that are very much function oversight governments of cities and villages included. In Illinois, in the rural areas, they're primarily a roadway function, taking care of roads that are outside of municipalities. Up here in Metro Chicago, we don't have a lot of roadways that are outside of municipalities. They've taken over some very important social service functions, food pantries, social workers, housing, these type of things. I'm a volunteer at a food pantry foundation in our local township, Niles Township. I observe the township government very, very small, very inexpensive. does a lot of good work in the social service area that the municipalities don't have the time or resources for, and the county would be too distant. School districts, self-explanatory as to what they do. And then special districts, quite a few. These are governments that we'll talk about in a few moments. We do have two present in the classroom, Prospect Heights and North Main. So local government varies greatly in size. Of those 87, it varies from a rural drainage district with no employees and maybe one contract to dig out the ditches once a year, all the way to the city of New York. New York Fire, I think it's 12,000 fire, another 5 or 6 EMS. If everybody went to a meeting all at once, that would be as big as many Illinois towns. So they vary greatly in size. They also have wide variances as to functions. Some states have no functioning counties. Hawaii, kindergarten through 12th grade public education is not a school district or a city function. It's run by the state. So if you were a Honolulu firefighter and you sent your daughter off to 3rd grade, Mrs. Jones in front of the classroom is a state employee. Some New England cities and towns, public education is a city department. It's not in a special school district. So if you were the mayor or the city manager of Lewiston, Maine, or the mayor of Boston, and you had a staff meeting, you'd look out at your fire chief, police chief, public works director, public health, and the school superintendent. Just a city department, just like any other. Again, to make this all happen, local government has no independent sovereignty outside the constitution of the state and the laws that create it. We don't have 3 levels of government. And I would say paradoxically, local government performs the most vital functions that the citizens want, with direct service to the citizens. So we have the least power and the greatest responsibility. And that's going to be a theme that we're going to talk about. There is often in government a separation between the responsibility you're given and the authority of the power that you have to carry those functions out. Let's talk about municipalities. They come in several different structures. Mayor council is a common one, where there's a mayor and a city council running the show. And political science tend to break those into 2 groups, a strong mayor and a weak mayor. And that's by structure, not by personality. In a strong mayor environment, the elected mayor serves as the chief executive officer. What makes him or her strong? We generally look at 3 different powers: appointment, veto, and preparation of the budget. Does the mayor have the authority to appoint his key her key advisors or department heads, the fire chief, police chief, public works, public health? Can the mayor veto legislation that's passed out of the city council? And who's responsible for the preparation of the budget? Doesn't sound like a power, but the person who or the office that prepares the first budget for consideration, pretty much in the driver's seat as far as how public policy is going to move forward. So City of Berwyn is an example in Metro Ring here of a strong mayor environment. A weak mayor may be elected, or he may be selected by the council, just like a school board president. And that mayor will not have all a veto, appointment, or budget powers. So there isn't often a bright line between the 2. Maybe the mayor has appointment power, but it has to be confirmed by the city council. So that's kind of shared. Maybe the preparation of the budget starts with an independent budget commission, but the mayor gets to appoint certain members on it. So it's not always a bright red line, but I think you can see the difference. You either have power to appoint your key people, to veto legislation, be involved in the budget at the initial steps, or you don't. The third category, council manager. Very common in medium-sized cities, but also some large ones: Dallas, Fort Worth, Cincinnati, San Jose, California. An appointed manager runs the daily operations and has administrative tasks all through his or her office. That manager will have significant executive authority. The most important one is personnel appointment and budget preparation. There's no veto power. You can't. The city council's the manager's boss. You can't veto the actions of your boss. I know we'd all like to, but generally you can't do that. But it's a strong form of government. It's a strong position in the government. The appointment power is very important to that functioning. In Skokie over the years, if the fire chief position became vacant or police chief, sometimes my wife or a friend would say, "Who do you think they'll appoint?" Well, there's no they. There's the manager. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of power. Looking out over our enrollees here, Morton Grove, I know, has a village administrator. I think that's just kind of like a village manager, maybe not as fully authority, but similar. Elmwood Park, I believe, is a village manager town. Bloomington, a city manager. Rosemont's a strong mayor. Chicago, of course, is a strong mayor. And Glencoe is a city manager government. So we've got kind of everything other than a weak mayor noted here. There's some other types, little things. There's commission form of government where you elect the town commission and they each take over an administrative department. Not very common, but it's still out there. New England town meetings where the citizens vote on all the important issues, not in a referendum, but at an actual meeting. So those are kind of outliers. Generally, our municipal government structure is mayor, strong or weak, or a city or village manager. The counties, 3,000 plus counties. This is the most varied form of local government. Some states don't have functioning counties, or if they do, they serve only as administrative arms of the state, such as the courts and the welfare office. Those type of things. It'll be the county welfare office. It's really a state function. Some time back, I remember watching a TV report of a pretty terrible crime that occurred near Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And the state attorney general is making a press conference statement about how we're going to solve this case, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing up there, Mr. Politician? You don't have anything to do with this. I remember, they probably do. There's probably not county state's attorneys or district attorneys in a state like New Hampshire, Delaware. The state attorney general's office is the felony prosecutor for those type of events, those type of unfortunate events statewide. So the county doesn't play a very important role. Conversely, some counties are providers of key local services: police, fire, rescue, public health, airports, etc. So think Florida, Arizona, California, where you know of large county fire rescue operations. You dial 911 in those counties and for a fire or an EMS situation, and the county shows up. So two very, very different sides of the coin. Some cities and counties are the same entity. Nashville and Indianapolis over time have combined into the county. New York City has 5 boroughs, they call them. British term means county. Within it, over time, they all started out as counties except for Brooklyn, which was a city when they merged together. But today, they're essentially policy advising and administrative subdivisions of New York City governmental operation. For some reason, there's a Queens Borough president and a Brooklyn Borough Council, but they don't have an awful lot of authority. The one place where there is county or borough authority is in prosecution. So the Brooklyn district attorney, the Bronx district attorney, et cetera, they are the real deal. But otherwise, it's an administrative subdivision. Each of the 5 boroughs has a fire dispatching office. So Queens companies are dispatched out of Queens, et cetera. We know from Art Imitating Life on Law and Order, Captain Benson runs Manhattan SVU. So it's an administrative operation. The crew is still city employees. They're not regulated by any type of Manhattan or county government. Nationwide, the structures of a county can include a elected legislator, an appointed or an ex officio legislature. People will serve on it by virtue of their office. There are locations where there's an elected county executive. It's popular in New York. That's just like a mayor, very powerful position. And there's also county commission manager systems, just like a manager town, a village or city manager town in Illinois, where the county hires a county manager, and he or she is the chief executive officer of the county. When I first came to Skokie a long time ago, the village manager left there to become city manager of Beverly Hills, And then later in his career, he was the county manager of San Bernardino County. So it's a occupation movement between cities and counties, which these gentlemen and ladies flow pretty easily. Okay, special districts. This is the largest number of local governments. They are established to provide one or more closely related services, such as water and sewer, fire protection. A lot of them are natural resource management, special districts. In suburban New York City, there are several, at least, water fire protection districts where those are the two functions. They run the water system and they run the fire department. A lot of fire protection districts in Illinois, most of them volunteer. Special districts have their own governing board, their own financing, their own powers under state law. Nationwide, as far as revenue, service fees predominate. So tollway charges, water and sewer charges, etc., park permits. But in Illinois, a fire protection district is heavily a property tax-based unit. We'll talk about that more when we talk about the budgeting module. Let's briefly look at the concept of home rule. Okay? If you pick up a political science textbook, it'll tell you that a general grant of power given by the state to local government is known as home rule. Right? But just like we have 50 states with other types of variances, there's a lot of variances in that power that is given to local governments. And Illinois is interesting because it differentiates between types of municipalities, a home rule municipality or a non-home rule municipality. If it's a home rule municipality, Illinois is one of the strongest local government power states in the country. That's out of a survey and analysis that was done by Western Illinois University some time ago. They also ranked Alaska quite high in the powers of a local government. How does Illinois home rule work? The city has significant power over its structure, its taxes, its borrowing, and its ability to regulate and also to be regulated by the state. And what is an Illinois home rule municipality? You're a home rule municipality. You gain that by having a population of over 25,000, okay, or adopting it by referendum. So you become a home rule municipality automatically if you were over 25,000 in 1970 when the Constitution was passed, or subsequent to that, if you went up in a census over 25,000, you became a home rule municipality. If you became a home rule municipality because of population and you later went down in population, you maintain your home rule status. Going back under 25,000 doesn't take it away from you. We have Morton Grove in the classroom. That's a perfect example. 1970, Skokie, Morton Grove, Niles, a lot of large families in the houses. Okay, so the census was pretty high. Ultimately, I think I'm a good example. We bought our house in Skokie in the early 80s. We replaced a family of 5 with a family of 3. So population went down. Morton Grove dropped below 25,000, but they maintained their home rule authority. You can also gain it by referendum. We have Glencoe in the classroom, under 25,000 in population, but had adopted a home rule referendum just a couple of years ago. You can also lose it by referendum. If you've got it either by referendum or population, your citizens decide they don't like that, they can take home rule authority away. Bad idea. Lombard and Rockford ring true as ones that had an undoing referendum, a successful undoing of their home rule authority. I think it's a bad idea, but nobody called me to ask me. So what does it mean? What does home rule authority mean? Well, it is broad, and it can really best be described for Illinois by citing what you can't do as opposed to what you can do. An Illinois home rule municipality cannot decriminalize a felony. That's good. We can't tax income. All right, so you can't have a federal income tax, a state income tax, and a Skokie income tax. Some states around the country allow local governments to have an income tax. Illinois is not one of them, and it's by Constitution. You can't act contrary to a constitutional provision, like public pensions. And you can't act contrary to a specific law that's adopted with a home rule preemption vote by the legislature. In order for the state to pass a law that takes away home rule authority in any area, it has to be adopted by a 3/5 majority. And first of all, if you've followed legislation efforts, it's hard to get anything passed. It's especially hard to get things passed with a supermajority. So there's not a lot of laws that take away home rule authority or preempt home rule authority, but there are some. So to wrap that up, Illinois, if you're a home rule municipality, and I think every municipality in the class is home rule. Glencoe by referendum. I don't know about Rosemont. But I don't think Rosemont wants for authority to affect the changes that they want to change. But perhaps the Rosemont student can let us know if they're a home rule municipality. But we're going to wrap up with this module with some discussion of transparency, government transparency. We'll start with the concept of the Open Meetings Act. Most of the states require that government business be transacted in the open, particularly legislative deliberations. These are usually codified into something called an Open Meetings Act. The laws will define a meeting. It'll define how you give proper notice to the public of the meeting, requirements for posting agenda content. It'll set out the allowances for closing the door. In other words, conducting a meeting that's not open to the public. In Illinois, we call it an executive session. It'll lay out the public's right to speak at a meeting, and it'll also lay out training rules for a municipality or any government, personnel, and also how the law is enforced, usually by the state attorney general's office. A couple of problem areas, and this is a Dan thing. I made these are things that I'm thinking of. The first is material discussion of a matter that's not on the agenda. So under Illinois law, and I confirmed this with a neighbor who is an attorney and does a lot of school district work, you can discuss a matter in the public meeting, even if it wasn't on the agenda. You just can't vote on it. All right. So I can see that being a problem down the road. Picture a situation where maybe or maybe not, you need a new firehouse, an additional fire station at the north end of town because of response times or whatever. The population's grown out there from development. So it's been kicking around a while. In one meeting, it's not on the agenda, but it comes up. A citizen brings it up or a board member brings it up. And the fire chief's there and the finance director's there and the building and zoning director's there. And you have a full-blown discussion of it. And everybody likes, the corner of 5th and Main up on the north end of town. Why not? Let's get things going. Let's get this on the agenda and get voted on. Next time we'll start the process. Well, you put it on the agenda, and the next meeting, a month later or 2 weeks later, whatever it is, there's a crowd because people want it. They don't want it. They're afraid it's going to take away fire rescue resources elsewhere in town, whatever. And it's good that they're all at the meeting because it's going to be voted on, but all the discussion's already taken place. And that's a bifurcation that I think can cause problems down the road. Right now, technically legal. Maybe keep your eyes on that. And by the way, try not to do that. Okay. Item B, conducting a closed door meeting without justification. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But you can close the door for certain reasons and only certain reasons. And if you stretch them, someone can file a beef with the attorney general's office, and you may end up having to undo something that you did following an executive session. The third one, and this is purely a Dan thing, I call it the accidental meeting. I'm on the Skokie Police Pension Board as a citizen. Our president is a commander on days, so he's always there. If I got to drop something off or I had to sign something, I go in and I sit down and talk to him. And the other uniform member who's on shift happens to be working and in the station and stops by, hey, how you doing, guys, whatever. And then someone says, hey, on that agenda next week, that letter from the surviving spouse's attorney about why she can't comply with something. We start talking about it. We got a quorum. We are talking about the business that's coming up on which only the board can act. And we're having a meeting. You're not supposed to have a meeting without it being posted and all the Open Meetings Act, the stuff that goes along with it. So beware the accidental meeting. avoid it if you can. Okay, the allowances for closed meetings in Illinois, these are the most relevant to municipal and fire protection district. Employment matters. So if a city manager or chief's contract or compensation is going to be discussed, performance reviews, if it gets to the legislative level, city council, village board, or fire district board, these are matters that we can close the door on. These are more high profile, in my observation, for school districts, because people care about their kids' teachers. So if Mr. Duncan, the beloved 8th grade social studies teacher, he's cool, he's got a ponytail, if his contract's not being renewed, it's a big deal. And you get a crowd, you go in a closed session, you decide not to renew, you come back, you have to act in public. You can't act in a closed session, you have to act in public. You're not going to talk a lot because it's a personnel matter. You vote to oust the guy, and it's a big controversy. That doesn't tend to spill over to municipalities and fire protection districts because, bluntly, nobody really is in love with their garbage man or water meter reader or street sweeper or firefighter. So these things tend not to be a big deal. We've had police matters spill over in Skokie where people love the school resource officer and he was being transferred out. But by and large, it's not a controversial item. Collective bargaining kind of goes along with employment. If you're in negotiations with, police, fire, public works union, you can discuss limits, offers, strategies in closed door session. Real estate acquisition, real estate sales, those can be discussed in closed door. Lawsuits, claims against the government, are you going to settle them? How much are we going to go? All those things are, of course, are allowed to be discussed in private. Again, action in public, but discussed in private. Interesting one, consideration of evidence. For all the years I've been on a police pension board, I should have known this a couple of years ago when I updated these slides. I got the state attorney general's pamphlet on the Open Meetings Act, and there was consideration of evidence. I thought, all right, that makes sense now. Picture a fire pension board meeting with a disability hearing. You're discussing some pretty personal elements of a person's life with him there you're answering board or attorney questions about what's his state of his health, what can he do, what can she not do, and the medical records in front of you, you're asking questions about it or you're discussing it. And then when it goes to evaluating, considering should this person be awarded a disability benefit, you get to close the door. The fire or police pension board goes into a separate room and kicks it around. It has to be recorded. There has to be a transcript of the meeting. You can't act in private, but you're out of the public eye. So you can consider evidence outside the public eye. There's some other options, security matters, security plans for a building or an event. Those, of course, can be closed door. And then there's pages of items related only to schools and public health centers, treatment centers that really don't have any municipal or fire district applicability. Okay, Freedom of Information Act, Part 2 of our government transparency module. Most states require state and local government to produce public records and documents on request, and those are called Freedom of Information Acts, FOIAs, or Freedom of Information Laws, FOILs. Typically, using Illinois as an example, the law spells out what's a record, how quickly you have to turn it over, what type of format you can present it in, establishing of a FOIA officer to be responsible for requests and responses, allows fees to be charged to certain limits, and it'll set out enforcement and penalties, usually overseen by a state attorney general's office. Bad news and good news. One is bad news, this concept of unduly burdensome. A government can refuse a FOIA request if it will be unduly burdensome. That's a tough standard to make. And in the meantime, there's not good protection against harassing requests. That gadfly who comes to the city council meeting and he files 8 freedom of information requests a day or a week or whatever, and everyone's running around using our tax dollars, our government resources to respond to this guy. But that's an exposure on democracy, I guess. There's nothing we can do about it. Here's some good news. A FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, is a great way to get information. Now, I realize that's kind of a simple statement, but let me give you two examples. We did research on the cost that municipalities and fire districts charge employees when they are retired and covered by Medicare. So what is the cost of the municipal health insurance for a retiree who's covered by Medicare? We thought it was too high generally, and it is. You're much better off having your retirees go to the private markets, Blue Cross or United Healthcare. But anyway, how do we get a base of information on that? We could do a survey, but I thought, wait a minute, let's file Freedom of Information Act requests. So we made a list of governments throughout the state that we knew had fire and police departments. And we went to their websites. I say we, somebody else did it for us. For me, and filed Freedom of Information Act requests, either their form online or an email. Very few we had to submit in writing, just asking for the last notice. Has to be a document, the last notice of Medicare supplement premiums that they charge their retirees. And we put in the request, you don't have to do this, but we put in the request, hey, we're not concerned about your operation. We're conducting general research for the benefit of all on this cost, and any report that we write is going to have your information aggregated in with other. We're not going to disclose this to anybody else, even though it's public information. We're doing like a nice guy message. Hey, help us out. We're going to help you out. Well, these things started going out at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we started getting responses after lunch. So it's just a really great way to get information. We did another example. I'll talk about it more under retirement, where we wanted to see what the penetration in or participation penetration in deferred compensation plans were between a municipality and the adjoining school district, the overlapping school district. Same thing. Out go these requests. Can you give us a report that shows how many of your employees are in deferred comp? And we're not examining you, we're examining the whole issue, and we'll report it out in the aggregate. And same thing, requests go out in the morning. We started getting responses in the afternoon. So it's a great way to get information. Now, if you're reading along in the classroom, I apologize. This slide is not in your handout. Just a little bit of an oversight. When I cut this presentation in half, this got lost. So we've added it back in at this point. What kind of information is not public under Illinois FOIA? Well, most personnel information is not FOIA-able. So this information in your personnel file, your coworkers' personnel files, your resume, your application, your test scores, any discipline, any warnings, complaint letters, etc. That is not FOIA ability. So there's an exception for a police department discipline. I've had this on my slide without that exception 2 or 3 classes ago. And a woman from Arlington Heights Fire says, hey, how come after there's a police use of force, the Tribune and Channel 7 a day later are telling me what this guy's disciplinary record is? So I said, hey, I don't know. Let me find out. So I checked with my contacts at Skokie Police, and police discipline is an exception. It has to be a finding that something was wrong. There has to be an action by the government, not an unfounded complaint or not something that's in process. It has to be something that was found to be actionable. And that is releasable on some pretty tight timelines. So, yeah, the press can get that, and they can get that fast. Private information with unique identifiers, who filed the complaint that the neighbor's fence was too high. That's all not FOIA-able. Law enforcement records of investigations and cases with cause is not FOIA-able. I add with cause. We've seen some events around the country where, a horrible crime will go unsolved for 10, 15 years. And the family would like to get the information and have a private investigator look into it. I don't know if that's ever successful or not, but that's what they want to do. And police will say often it's an ongoing investigation. So they go to court, and the judge looks at it and sees, every 6 months somebody looks at the file, makes a phone call or two, does a Google search, DNA, bank, anything show up? No, it takes 20 minutes. and they close it, still pending, and the judge will say, hey, that's not an active investigation, and we're going to allow the family to have this information. So law enforcement records almost totally are non-FOIable, but it has to be with cause. If there's not a cause, it can be released. Preliminary drafts and notes. So if you're working on a report back and forth with the boss or a coworker on, a new school SCBA program or some type of public outreach program that you're working on, drafts are going back and forth, your notes from a meeting. No. Okay. Once you finally say, dear chief, here's our proposal for blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's a document that's FOIable. Proposals, bids, contracts. We'll talk about that under contracting until a decision is made. So at a bid opening, if 3 bids come in for a new ladder truck, and you open them up and you read them aloud because that's what you have to do, and someone says, hey, you can't provide a truck for that price. I want to see that document. No, you can't see that document until it's been analyzed, until a recommendation has been made. When this goes to the city council, our report, everything behind it, that's a public document. So that's the list of Illinois FOIA thing. And then I would add, just because in the rescue part of fire rescue, you're covered by HIPAA, similar privacy laws, that information is non-disclosable. So that's our conclusion of part 1 of this NIPSTA course, Government and Finance for the Fire Service. I don't know if Ryan in the class will let you take a break. Sean and I will separately record part 2, and that'll be available for download from the IPPFA TV website, YouTube, for use in the classroom or for anyone else who would like it. And once again, my email is right there, dan.ryan@ippfa.org. Today, tomorrow, anytime, if you have a question on any of this material, please reach out, and I'll see you at part 2.